cheer then. Oh, guys. Yeah. Thank you. Can I just say that you guys are so nice. Really lovely. And do you know what? Do you know what else? Do you know, I've had a few compliments on my dress tonight. Thank you very much. That's how nice you all are. You complimented me on it, which is a big thing for me because, this is the 1830 service, and one of you lovely people here, or maybe a few of you, complimented me on my appearance, so that makes me feel really good. So thank you. I feel so great. But what you wear is important, isn't it? I listened to this beautiful conversation the other week. It was last week. Tom was leading the 10:30, and somebody said to him, "I like your shirt." And he said, "Oh, thanks. Leading worship, check shirt." I mean, who knew? That's what you need. I mean, Livy and Tim, definitely didn't get the memo for that tonight. But I don't know how long Tim took deciding on his black t-shirt before he led the worship tonight. But sometimes it just takes me quite a while to decide what to wear. There are some days where I can't get it right. And I try on everything in my wardrobe and I'm like, it's not quite right, this. And I'll end up with a massive pile of clothes on my bed. Like the entire contents of my wardrobe are just there on my bed. And then I walk out the house probably, more often than not, in the first thing that I tried on as I go out. And I don't know, do you have days like that? Yeah? Give us a whoop if you relate to that. Give us a whoop if you know somebody who does that. Yes, we relate to that. Well, great news, because in his letter to the Colossians, Paul's going to give us some keys to sort out our spiritual wardrobe. So we're always going to look good whatever we put on. Whenever we walk out the house, we're going to look great, because there's going to be nothing in your spiritual wardrobe that doesn't look great on you. So, does that sound like a dream? Yeah, it sounds great, doesn't it? I've given a little bit of a game away here. We'll show that in a bit later. So, you see, we're following last week's sermon when we were looking at Colossians 2. We know that we can have the freedom of God's love, and we can have that from freedom of idols in this world and from making ourselves king of our own lives through the person of Jesus. And he challenged us to live our reality of Jesus Christ, rather than our feelings or our desires or from the self. And by doing that, knowing Jesus Christ as Lord and Saviour, we can worship without the control of all other claims on our lives. So if that is true for us, there needs to be a radical change to our spiritual wardrobe, don't you think? Yeah, there needs to be something that makes a difference. And now, in verse 17 of the reading we've just done today, Paul says, whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus. And now, in the first century church, in fact, throughout the whole of the Bible, generally speaking, a person's name is linked to their character. So doing something in Jesus' name is doing something in Jesus' character. And as a Christian, we're called to be clothed in a way that it's got Jesus' name written all over it. So you act in his name. Just like if you were in the army, you're an army officer and you're wearing their uniform, you're not operating out of your own strength, but for and because you're part of the British Royal Army. So instead, as a Christian, you are acting on behalf of Jesus on earth. And if you're finding some resistance to that change in your spiritual wardrobe, so that it's got to change in a way that people will notice the difference, then I think there's probably a little bit more to grasp about the person of Jesus and the good news he is. But we don't need to worry, because Paul's going to give us some excellent sort your life out tips. And I have got here with me something to help us. Now, has anybody watched Stacey Solomon Sort Your Life Out? Ooh, 2 people. I obviously watch too much trashy TV. Anyway, let me explain it to you. Stacey Solomon, she's great. She really will help you sort your life out. Paul will do it better, but what she does is she gets people to empty the entire contents of their house into like this warehouse. And then as you empty the contents of your house, you have to then go through everything and decide whether you're going to recycle it, upcycle it, throw it in the bin, give it to somebody else. And you make that decision, then you can only put stuff back in your house that you've chosen. So she does that. So we're going to do that today with our spiritual wardrobe. Are you up for that? Yes. Right, and we're going to pull everything out of our wardrobe. I don't know if you were ready for that tonight. Yeah, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to pull it all out. We're going to organise it into 3 piles. So we have got the treasure it pile. We have got the bin it pile. You just thought I was coming to do some laundry, didn't you? And we've got this is my favourite, flaunt it pile. So we're going to do that tonight. Are you excited? You sound a bit petrified, actually. But anyway, this is what we're going to do. And can I just encourage you as we think about this, if you could have maybe your devices at Colossians 3, or you have your Bible open, as we dig into this text a little bit, I think it will help us as we work through this together. So the first thing that we're going to think about, everything's out, we've pulled everything out, haven't we? We're going to think about, what are you going to treasure? What are you going to treasure? So I would say the things that you treasure, they're the things that you wear all the time, aren't they? So as a sign of my marriage, I wear this lovely wedding ring, just in case I forget. No, I won't do that, honestly. Love Rich. So I've got my wedding ring. I've also, I'm wearing another ring here. This is from my nana. I inherited this ring, and it reminds me of all the lovely stories that she used to tell me about what happened with my dad when he was growing up, but also it reminds me of who she's with now, that she's with Jesus. And I'm wearing these. Do you like these earrings? You can get them on Depop for sale. They're my daughter's. I'm just selling them for her. She made these earrings, and I like wearing them because she reminds me that there's something about her that's like me, her creativity. So we wear things that say something about, I shouldn't forget my cross, should I? I'm a Christian as well, just in case you didn't know. There you go. And so when you're choosing your spiritual wardrobe, we need to choose the things that we're going to wear all the time. So you can't actually put a price on these things, can you? Because they have inherent value. They say something about who you are in Christ. And if we look at our reading today, Paul reminds these new Christians in Colossae what is the same for the church today. First of all, he says, you are chosen, holy and dearly loved. Just like Miriam reminded us earlier, you have a place, don't you? That you're chosen, you have a place. God sought you. And it doesn't matter whether you follow the law or not, because God's love is free for you. And your life changes because of this. Have you grasped that for yourself? Is that in your basket? You are forgiven. Jesus died for you, so you can be free from guilt of anything that you've done wrong. He has given you a perfect record. Do you know that enough? Is it in your basket? You are members of one body. That means you are part of this wonderful family. I loved the Vox Pops earlier because we heard a little bit about how we celebrate that together. But we can celebrate the treasures in their heart and that they have the same inheritance as we do. Do you know that? Is that important to you? You are also raised with Jesus. It says that right at the beginning. That means you have a new resurrection life in God's new world, the heavenly world, and you share the throne with Jesus, having authority over heaven and earth. And that's where the real you is now to be found. Is that in your basket? So we need to spend some time working out what each of these things are so that they can become important treasures to us. What do they mean to you? What does it mean to you when you're told that you are chosen? What does it mean when you are forgiven? What does it mean to be raised with Jesus Christ? You need to work those things out so that they have inherent value to you and they can't be replaced. And you can do that by, the first step is looking at God's word and studying it and meditating on how important these treasures are for you. And we had a word last week at the 10:30. I thought it was so good. I just want to share it with you again. And it was about like a jewel. And somebody had this jewel in it, got a little bit dusty, and that it needed polishing with a polishing cloth. And I think that's really important because these things are already true for you. If you're a Christian, these things are already true. But maybe they need a little bit of a dust. Maybe you need to get your polishing cloth out and you need to spend some time treasuring those things so you can put them in your basket. And if you know who you are, then you can know how to be. And so Paul's saying here that you need to set your heart on the truth of who you are, which means that not only do you treasure the truth for yourself, but that it overflows out into your actions. I know somebody who told me that they'd got this sign on their front door. So it says, "Remember who you are and whose you are." So that every time that they left the house, this was like their reminder to them. And it's quite a pithy statement, isn't it, really? And so it only really works if you've spent the time on working that out, if you've spent the time polishing that jewel up to work out who you really are and whose you really are. And Eve talked last week about getting to know the person of Jesus better and living out that reality of Jesus. And I want to urge you to think about how you might do that and invest some time and fill your basket with treasures. Because verse 11 says, Christ is all and is in all. So when my friend, she leaves the house and she reads that sign, remember who you are and whose you are, she knows that Christ is with her. He's working through her all the time because she has that treasure in the basket of her heart and her mind. So what are you going to treasure? I'm going to put this basket over here because let's think about our second basket. What are you going to bin? The bin it basket. Oh, this is a tricky basket, isn't it? But I don't know. I forgot to check this before I came up here, but I don't know how old this film is, actually. Have you ever watched the film Notting Hill? Oh, you have. It's an old classic, isn't it? I was thinking, maybe you haven't, but you've watched it. Julia Roberts, Hugh Grant, set in Notting Hill. Yeah? It's a great film. Anyway, there's this scene where Hugh Grant's housemate, he's called Spike, he needs some help with a very important decision. The decision is, what is he going to wear for his date? So he's got a selection of T-shirts and he needs to know which one. So he pops upstairs and he comes down with his first T-shirt on. And it's this white T-shirt, but in the middle is like this pop-out shark. There, and it's got blood all around it, this splattered in blood with the words, "I love blood," written on it. And Hugh Grant's character rightly points out that it might not strike the most romantic note for the date. So Spike goes back upstairs, comes down with another T-shirt on, and he keeps doing this to get progressively worse. And as Hugh observes, they might make the said date think that true love wasn't quite on his mind. The thing is, once you've identified your treasures, there will be things that don't just quite set the right tone in your new spiritual wardrobe. They don't share the message that you know that you are loved and chosen. And it's a style that perhaps is contrary to your identity with Jesus. But as Paul says, you don't belong in the old world anymore. The rules that were relevant there, they aren't relevant for you anymore. You now have a new perspective. That means that your wardrobe must suit that perspective. And if you've ever had a clear out, this is the hardest bit, isn't it? Which one are you going to, what are you going to throw away? What are you going to keep? Maybe you'll need it one day. But Paul calls us to be brutal. He says we need to put the old things of way of life to death. We need to rid ourselves of it so that we don't just take them off, that you put them in the bin because we just don't need them anymore. You need to be ruthless when you're thinking about what you're going to put in the bin. And there are two main priorities that Paul picks out for the bin. The first one, he talks about sexual immorality and greed. And this kind of mostly points to stuff, generally speaking, that we make idols of in our life and we believe that we can't live without. It's not like a list of do this, don't do this, a list of laws. It's more about making Jesus your Lord and Saviour. And you can tell if something's become an idol because it motivates you more to do that thing than Jesus' love for you. Now, Paul's quite clear throughout his letters how we use our bodies is important. Eve talked a bit last week about freedom, but it isn't freedom if we're just doing what we want to do. It's freedom in Jesus Christ is the overflow of our love for him. And I remember when I first became a Christian, I had a boyfriend at the time, and it seemed to me that the relationship just didn't fit anymore. You know, I thought it was a really serious relationship. I thought that maybe we'd get married one day. But there were things then, that before I became a Christian, that I thought were, I was totally happy with. But as a Christian, they just didn't quite sit right with me. And it was hard because there were emotions and there were expectations. They were all involved. And believe me, I tried every avenue possible to keep that particular outfit on. But in the end, as tough as it was, it needed to go in the bin. Lucky rich, I say, though. Yeah. And there have been other things over the years, stuff that's crept in, that has started to motivate me more than Jesus. And I don't know if you've found this too, but sometimes it's tempting to cover yourself up. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll cover myself up with a cloak of righteousness. The cloak of righteousness can make you feel like the other stuff isn't a big deal. But God, he doesn't want you to wear the old stuff underneath because you don't need it anymore. The cloak of righteousness isn't about hiding things. It's about restoring. And so for me, as good as those other things may maybe feel in the moment, and sometimes I still come up against them, as happy as I think I might be, if I know it's not right because it has become more important than my relationship with Jesus, it's just got to go in the bin. So that's kind of the first priority about sexual immorality and greed. And the second priority that Paul talks about here is about our tongue and dishonouring others. How you talk about people is really important. And it's dishonouring if it's dishonouring in any way, it needs to go in the bin. Paul mentions anger and rage and malice and slander and filthy language. I wasn't really going to tell you this story, but I was sat in KFC earlier, that's a great establishment, and we were overhearing somebody just really belittling somebody and making them feel really small. I was really tempted to go up and give them this whole sermon. Rich dragged me out. We prayed for them, and Rich dragged me out the door. And I was like, how can I be Jesus in this? How can I wear Jesus' wardrobe in this situation? But, it was so striking hearing how somebody was speaking to somebody else with, such, just not nice. And we're called to do things in Jesus' name. We need to not forget that in Jesus' character. That's all things, not just the bits that align with how we best see the world. And it's difficult to do any of the things that Paul writes about here, like the sexual immorality and the greed and the dishonouring others. It's difficult to do any of that in Jesus' name. A couple of weeks ago, I was out with a friend and we were chatting, and as she was chatting, a swear word slipped out of her mouth. And she immediately apologised afterwards for swearing to a vicar. Yeah, it happens quite a bit, actually. To be honest, I hadn't noticed too much that they'd sworn. It happens. But what I had noticed was the apology, and the reason for the apology struck me the most. The apology wasn't really because of me. It was because who I represent on earth, the risen Jesus. That was what the apology was for, and that's who they represent too. And so we need to think about putting off the old suit of clothes. Think about what are the things that you need to take off. Perhaps there's something that's still stuck in the back of your drawer somewhere that you only pull out to wear when other people aren't looking. That's a good sign. It's something that needs to go in the bin. As Paul tells the Colossians, you don't need it anymore. You need to put it to death. You need to bin it. So we're going to leave that there over here for later. So we think about that. Now, this is my favourite one. Third and final, and my favourite. What are you going to flaunt? Yeah? Do we look? It's a good one. You're not very, very excited about this one. I thought you'd be most excited about. You were more excited about the bin it option, weren't you? Flaunt it. Come on, we can do this. Yes, thank you. So we've got some items in the bin. We're not going to be walking around naked, are we? Let's face it. It's not a great look. It's getting cold. We don't want to be pulling them back out of the bin again, do we? So we need to find some replacements. We need to put on our new self. And that means a great wardrobe is going to be essential for us. Who said Christians dress dowdy? No one did they? The wardrobe that we're going to put on it's all to do with relationships and getting on with people. People say we need to put on, Paul says we need to put on compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, forgiveness, love. What does it look like to clothe yourselves in those different things? Can you think about what it would look like to clothe yourself in forgiveness, or clothe yourself in love, or kindness, or compassion? For example, every time you're compassionate, it's when you understand or affirm someone's feelings. You're not being in a hurry to fix them, to fix their situation, just to be with people. And you build relationship and fellowship and make connections. And I love those. I said I love those Vox Pops earlier, because St. George's is a great place to practice and to wear that wardrobe, isn't it? And a great place to do that is by serving or by being in small groups. And we heard how people had seen that displayed to them and received it and worn it themselves. And they're great places to do it because there's encouragement, there's accountability. And, it's a great picture of the small groups, because just like the church in Colossae, they were in the early church, there was small groups of people that were meeting together in each other's homes, and that's what we do in our small groups. And it might be for you that some of these clothes fit a bit more naturally than others. It might be that, you're just a compassionate person by nature, and that outfit just fits you and it looks great on you. But maybe there's some other things that, maybe you're not so patient, and that's an outfit that you really need to work on and get it to fit a bit better. And you need to grow into it. And in that case, it's good to pray, isn't it? For opportunities to wear these virtues. God's always great. If you pray for a bit more patience, so he'll give you a situation where you can practice that virtue of patience. I also love what Paul says in this letter. He says there's no restrictions to it. Anyone can wear these clothes. It's not just for some people and others can't. It doesn't matter about race or gender. We're all human beings in the process of being renewed by God. But I do think the best thing about this wardrobe is that you become image bearers, reflecting God into the world, rather than reflecting the ways of the world back to the world itself. So the items in this basket aren't to show us off, to flaunt us, to give us glory. They show God off. So, have you got your wardrobe now? Yeah, you're all happy? Yeah? So now you've got your new wardrobe. Every item in your new way of life is custom made by the Creator. It's got his label on it. It's a style that people will notice, and it's going to bring opportunities for you to share the good news that has transformed your life. That's the best thing about this wardrobe. And in an amazing turn of events, it says in verse 4, because Christ is in your life, when he appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. How great is that?